As Canada's inflation rate rises, this food bank is seeing demand climb.
In April, per week, we were seeing over 1,300 people per week, which was the highest on record for us.
Friends Holly Loic and Carlisle Lambert say they can no longer afford to buy all the groceries they need.
Can't even get by with rent and the food costs, right? And when they raise all the prices, you're left to go to food banks.
Some food prices are seeing double-digit increases. Fresh fruit and meat up 10% over last year. Bread, 12. Pasta, nearly 20.
You know, you have to eventually buy less of the things that you want because things are more expensive now.
Statistics Canada says Russia's invasion of Ukraine, poor weather in growing regions, and costs of fertilizer and natural gas have all made groceries more expensive. Shelter and gas prices also spiking while wages lag behind. Prince Edward Island has the highest inflation rate of any province.
I'm on a fixed income and we only have my wife working. I wouldn't say we're really broke, but we're teetering on it. We're having a real tough time.
It just keeps going higher and higher. It's giving us a tougher time to be able to afford more groceries than we normally did a couple of months ago.
Feels like, I think, to most Canadians that inflation is just inescapable at this point.
This economist says while the Bank of Canada can't control global factors like supply chain problems, energy costs, and war, it can raise interest rates to try to slow borrowing and cool things domestically.
Shelter inflation is coming primarily from higher house prices. And if the Bank of Canada can cool some of that, it's going to help to cool overall inflation.
He says in raising rates, the bank needs to be slow and steady to avoid a recession. Economists say expect another rate hike next month. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Okay, so let's bring in personal finance expert Rubina Ahmed-Haq into this conversation. And boy, inescapable, that's not a word I think most folks want to hear at this point. Is this our new normal, Rubina? Why is inflation continuing to rise?
So interest rate is a piece of it. Supply chain issues is another piece. The fact that demand is up so much with the pandemic and the restrictions being lifted, all that is raising prices. And even if interest rates are higher, it takes about a year for that actually to be reflected in consumer goods. So it's going to be a while before we see prices actually come down.
And then, of course, this squeeze happens because the wages aren't increasing fast enough to keep pace. So how should people be coping right now?
So if you are interested in making more money, the best advice I could give is to look for a new job. The best way to get a wage bump is to actually start a new job at a new company. You can also speak to your employer and see if they can increase your salary, but it's not going to increase by 7, 8, 9%, which is where inflation is headed towards. And that is something that, for families is going to be very difficult as to what they have to cut in order to make their budget work.
Can we also get your take on something else that happened today? Huge dive, right, on the markets. The Dow Jones falling 3.6%, worst day since June 2020, driven, experts say, by inflation fears of major retailers. What are we to make of all of this happening at the same time? And is this a sign of bad things to come?
So throughout the pandemic, we've been hearing that a lot of Canadians and Americans have all this pent-up savings that they're going to unleash into the economy once they're able to do so. But with inflation ticking higher, many of those same families that have been saving the money may decide to keep it in their bank account, may decide to invest it and see what happens with inflation. So that is why companies like Walmart and Target are cutting their outlook. And that is sending fear, saying that, well, that economic boom that we were looking forward to may never come because Canadians may just hang on to the money that's in their bank account and not spend it on consumable items, which is so important when it comes to the Canadian economy and the American economy.
All right, Rubina, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.